Hi, everybody, and welcome to SUSECON. My name is Sanjeet Singh, and I'll be covering SUSE Enterprise Storage and Solutions and Ecosystem. Let me give a quick agenda of what we're going to talk about. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about the business challenges that we face as a storage in the storage market, in the storage industry. I'll give a quick overview of SUSE Enterprise Storage, what the product is all about, but I'll spend bulk of my time talking about some of the use case focused solutions. The point here is to talk about how exactly our customers and your peers deploying SUSE Enterprise Storage in their environments. So with that, let's just jump right into it. We're all aware of this. Data has been growing extremely fast over the past few years. In fact, that acceleration is only increasing. According to a study done by IDC, we will be at 175 zettabytes by 2025. And some are even saying that this prediction might be overcome in the next couple of years before we reach 2025. And this data is coming from across the board. We have medical data that is exploding. IoT data and the new use cases surrounding that are generating an extremely large amount of data. Videos are growing higher and higher in resolution and becoming more ephemeral in the sense that more people are consuming them on a regular basis. All that data is being stored somewhere. Mobile data has led to a huge explosion of the amount of storage that is required. That is just talking historical trends. Going forward, with the emergence of some of the new use cases such as autonomous vehicle driving, such as 5G networks, that is only expected to grow more and more. So with that, let's talk about, from a storage standpoint, how that's impacting the storage technologies. The current generation technologies simply cannot keep up. They are difficult to scale. They don't allow managing for that data growth. They're expensive. In fact, we were recently talking to a customer whose budget for storage was what the GDP of a small country would look like. And this was a large storage consumer, but they were talking about a multi-$100 million storage deployment. But that is something that we are seeing happen again and again. Costs are exploding, whereas the budgets are not being able to keep up. And that is causing pressure in the storage market. And finally, we're talking about how some of the traditional technologies don't extend into the software-defined data center. They can't. The customer nowadays is looking for flexibility. Lines of businesses are looking for agility, and traditional technologies simply do not deliver that. So with that, a few years ago, SUSE decided to launch SUSE Enterprise Storage. This is an intelligent software-defined storage solution that is built upon the Ceph technology, which enables IT to transform their enterprise storage infrastructure completely from ground up. It has become the bridge. SUSE Enterprise Storage has become the bridge from traditional technologies into a software-defined data center. What SUSE Enterprise Storage delivers is a highly scalable and a resilient environment. It's technology such that it allows for failures within the environment without having a business impact to the end user or the end application. Secondly, by using off-the-shelf servers and off-the-shelf hardware components, it reduces IT costs significantly. And not only is the IT cost reduced from an acquisition perspective, but also from a long-term management perspective. Finally, it allows for that changing business requirement. When a customer needs to upgrade their storage environment, they just are able to automatically upgrade that environment in a relatively easy fashion. No disruption, no forklift upgrades needed to their storage infrastructure. So that's why SUSE Enterprise Storage has started becoming a very groundbreaking technology that the industry has seen. So let's talk a little bit more about the benefits of this technology. This Ceph-based architecture is a unified software-defined storage application which allows multiple interfaces. What it does ensure is maximum uptime. In fact, while we are not allowed to advertise 100% uptime in all cases, but we are indeed seeing customers that have approached 100% uptime over the past multiple years that they are running their environment. And in fact, that is a requirement for some of these customers. Because of the self-healing capabilities, this allows for the maximum availability. Then there is the scalability. SUSE Enterprise Storage can scale from literally a few tens of terabytes all the way to hundreds of petabytes. The single architecture allows for that scale to happen. And finally, it's the no single points of failure which make a big difference to this, which bring the true benefits of the technology to bear. Reduced IT operational expenses, another key value of this particular solution. First, I touched upon it a little bit earlier, but what it does is it decreases, it increases the capital expenditure savings because of off-the-shelf commodity hardware that's used. From a storage management perspective, SUSE Enterprise Storage reduces the total cost of ownership over the long term also. And finally, because a small number of IT staff can manage very large deployments, this reduces the operational expenses from a manpower perspective also. All in all, it leads to a fairly reduced operational expenses when up and running in a data center. And finally, probably the most important value to customers today. Customers today are looking for flexibility. They're looking for being able to meet their business needs. And this technology supports that because of the flexibility that it brings to bear. You can automatically upgrade, optimize this, upgrade or add storage as the need be. You can very easily provision this technology. You can very easily provision SUSE Enterprise Storage from a small to a large scale deployment. It maximizes the flexibility because there is no vendor lock-in. All of these allow customers to accelerate their innovation. And as we start moving into these software-defined data centers, this becomes the key value for many of our customers. So with that, let's jump into use case-based solutions and how you can start using SUSE Enterprise Storage in specific environments that you may have. When we first came to market, we decided to focus on the different models that customers might be deploying storage in. There are these classical workloads. Think of things like backup to disk. Think file sync and share. Think HPC storage. Then there are these cloud-native workloads which have started emerging as one of our key use cases. These are the key software-defined data center use cases, such as analytics, such as Kubernetes or CAS or container platforms. And then there are the custom applications also. Customers that are building custom applications from grounds up on these new data centers which require storage. So let's touch each of these separately. All of these can be delivered. The way we bring the solution to the market is we have decided to do very different flexible configurations. You can have certified reference architectures from your favorite hardware vendor. We also deliver appliances, and we also allow for custom built configurations. So let's talk a little bit about classical workloads. Backup to disk tends to be one of those classical use cases which every customer has a need for. It is, comparatively speaking, a lower risk solution when you're deploying a new type of technology in your data center. So we have, in fact, many customers that have deployed, started with a backup to disk environment and then grown into other use cases. Case in point is University of Swinburne, based out of Australia. What they did was they deployed a Commvault-based backup to disk solution with SUSE Enterprise Storage, and eventually started adding multiple other use cases as they saw the value of SUSE Enterprise Storage in their environments. So one of the key things that SUSE has done is to work with various software vendors, backup software vendors, and gotten certifications hand in hand. We have worked with them to get the certifications for a full end-to-end solution. So when you deploy SUSE Enterprise Storage in a customer in your environment, you see key benefits come out. Key benefits of a software-defined technology come out in that space. For example, lower cost. The backup to disk is one place where with the growth in primary data leads to a fairly significant growth in secondary data also. So lower cost becomes one of the key value propositions for deploying SUSE Enterprise Storage in your backup to disk environment. Then there is the advantage of or the value of improved SLAs. By keeping more and more data online in an active second-tier deployment, you can recover the data faster. You can recover the data faster, and more data can be recovered back to the end user. If the CEO loses an email from, say, 9 months ago to a year and a half ago, the line of business or the backup administrator can very quickly recover that piece of information and present it back to the CEO or to the business user. Then there is the question of scalability. Given that SUSE Enterprise Storage can scale from tens of terabytes all the way to petabytes, this becomes an ideal backup environment. It can allow you to start small from wherever you are today, and over the next few months to years, keep on adding larger and larger backup infrastructure in your environment. And finally, it can help meet your regulatory requirements. As newer requirements have been put in, for example, GDPR over the past couple of years, more and more data has to be kept online. For example, one of the things about GDPR is that you have to be, if an end consumer requires you to find their information, you have to very quickly be able to present it within 24 hours or 48 hours, depending on the governance. You have to recover that information and present it back to the consumer. This technology can help you meet that particular requirement. So let's talk about one specific example. We have worked very closely hand in hand with Veeam to come out with the reference architectures for deploying SUSE Enterprise Storage in various repositories behind Veeam. Veeam can accommodate up to 3 different repositories behind the backup software. You can have a performance tier repository, you can have an archive repository, and finally you can have a cloud tier repository. The benefit of SUSE Enterprise Storage in this environment is that you have a single architecture that can meet multiple use cases. And as Veeam launched into the SAP workloads, this has become the perfect solution for protecting those enterprise workloads, including SAP including SAP HANA. Okay, let's talk about some of the other use cases where we are seeing a lot of success also. HPC storage. HPC storage is another area where we are seeing significant amount of growth. HPC tends to be one place where the user is very well aware of what their data landscape looks like. Typically, customers have some fast storage and some slow storage. Fast storage is primarily reserved for running that job, and then you have some slow storage or relatively slow storage, which becomes your archival or your nearline storage. While we have seen some customers deploy SUSE Enterprise Storage in primary storage use cases also, we typically recommend the ideal placement of SES for HPC use cases as tier 2 storage. In fact, some of the work that we have done, we have seen that the latencies provided by the latencies that we are seeing in SUSE Enterprise Storage have come to a point where many primary use case, where SES is being deployed in many primary use cases also. Having said that, typically what we see customers deploy a very high performance storage tier 1, such as Lustre, such as NFS, such as XFS, and then data gets tiered away to SUSE Enterprise Storage for long-term storage purposes, or home directories, where researchers on these HPC use cases are given home directories. Their entire data is kept on home directories in SUSE Enterprise Storage, but when the need is there, the data gets moved into primary storage, the jobs get run against it, and then output gets written back into tier 2, SUSE Enterprise Storage with tier 2. What we have also done is certified SUSE Enterprise Storage with various frameworks, such as HPE Data Management Framework version 7 or IRODS, and what that allows end users to do is have an automated management solution for their data, so that when a job gets loaded, the data automatically moves from a second tier location to a primary tier location, and when that job is complete, the data gets moved back to that second tier location. File sync and sharing solution. This is another key use case for many of our customers. As we are seeing a change in current behaviors, especially as a part of growing the work from home trend that we are seeing because of the current market turmoils, one of the things that we are starting to see a lot more is customers that need a Dropbox-like solution primarily for internal use cases. This becomes your internal Dropbox-like file sharing solution, all kept within the firewall. In fact, we had UK Essen, which is a research hospital based out of Germany. What they needed to do was to have exactly a file sharing solution, but where they could keep all the data internal to their within their firewalls. This is a university research hospital where doctors are given the ability to share sensitive data between each other, or researchers are given the ability to share sensitive data between each other, and that was something where they couldn't go outside the firewall. So to be able to support their business, to be able to support the business needs that they had, they built an internal file sharing use case using a front end open source file sync and share called cFile. And what SUSE has done is that we have gone ahead and gotten certifications with various open source and proprietary file sync and share solutions. So depending on your use case, you can choose the right one and then deploy that particular portal with SUSE Enterprise Storage in the background, and give your business various different enable various different business needs, such as remote office backup, which is powered through Storage Made Easy, which is an enterprise file services solution, or OwnCloud, which allows a simple file sharing use case for internal and external use cases, and it integrates into your LDAP or security environments very well. Okay, so let's shift to some of our newer and emerging use cases. One of the key growth areas that we are seeing amongst our customers, in fact, is analytics. Hadoop was one of the big things over the past few years that started emerging maybe 3 to 4 years ago, and that has given rise to a whole ecosystem of analytics use cases. But the problem there has been that the growth of data has been so much that what was literally a few petabytes a few years ago, now customers are talking about managing hundreds of petabytes of data in their analytics platforms. So what has happened is that this Ceph-based platform, SUSE Enterprise Storage, has become the ideal central repository for supporting for data that can support multiple workloads. What this has enabled customers to do is to start building various use cases on top of that, while keeping data in a single central location. I will give an example of I'll give a specific example of a customer without naming that customer, but I'll give that example in the next slides. But what customers are able to do is to create a data pipeline with data being stored in a central location. They've been able to deploy AI workloads and HPC workloads on that very same data repository, while you have other workloads that are plugging in to do other tasks. For example, one cluster could be running Spark, some kind of a Spark job on the same data. You can have another cluster running a MapReduce, a traditional Hadoop, or a MapReduce job on the very same data within that same repository. Or you may have some NoSQL use cases where this SUSE Enterprise Storage can become that archival location for storage of data once it's no longer needed in that NoSQL database. So let's talk about a customer example. About 2 or so years ago, a customer approached us and said, hey, I have 3 different departments, which each of those 3 departments are running different Spark versions. And what they ended up doing was that they had literally 3 stamps of the same infrastructure for these 3 departments. They would take the same data, copy it into 3 different locations, and keep it on a native Hadoop, native HDFS file system in those departments. So what they were literally doing was taking some data and creating 3 different copies in 3 different departments. But the data started growing very fast. When they were at 1 petabyte, the actual data would get copied into 3 different locations, so 3 petabytes, and then each of those locations was being, the footprint of each of those locations was another 3 petabytes each. So you had a total footprint of data of 9 petabytes. They did the projection. Within the next couple of years, they were going to be at 40 petabytes of data. And that meant they would probably be at 300 plus petabytes footprint of data, which was not going to be a workable solution. So we started working with them to sort of consolidate everything into one single data lake solution. So what the customer ended up doing was to consolidate those 3 departments the data from those 3 departments into one single central location, which allowed them to run their own versions of Spark or their own versions of their own applications on top of that in those separate departments. Not only was data consolidation one of their key benefits that they received, but they also got agility out of it. This meant that when they wanted to introduce a new version of Spark in any one of those departments, they could just spin up a small cluster, test it out against that very same data, instead of going to their main production, which they were doing back in the day. They would basically shut down their main production workload, test it against the same data, and then spin up the main production workload, say, over the weekend. Now they could spin up a small cluster with the new version of Spark, let it run against the very same data on the data lake, and then once their test dev environment has test and dev people have cleared it, it could be sent into the production environment. This customer got better predictive capability. Given the fact that they were able to combine more and more applications into a single data lake, meant that they were able to analyze more data within their environment. In fact, they started off with Spark, but a few months down the line, they realized that they could have a Kafka stream collecting some IoT data and ingesting it into the data lake. They were able to launch an Elastic Elasticsearch capability. They were able to give an Elasticsearch capability to their end users on that very same data. So that gave them a much better predictive capability for the rest of their business, which met their other business needs also. And finally, cost reduction. All of this, being able to consolidate the data, being able to reduce the data footprint, being able to get better predictive capabilities, led to a significant reduced total cost of ownership for this particular customer. Now let's talk a little bit about some of the future workloads that we are starting to see emerge. One of the key, as more and more customers have started going into, started building containerized applications, we have also, SUSE Enterprise Storage is now certified with SUSE CaaS platform, which is our own container platform that we have launched about 2 or so years ago. SUSE Enterprise Storage is also now certified with any Kubernetes distribution through container storage interface. Now, please note that SES 7, which is an upcoming release, will support running SUSE Enterprise Storage on the very same node as Kubernetes. It is not supported today. That's just one household item. And if you go to the, if you attend this the roadmap session that is being delivered, you can also check the specific details of when will that particular release arrive and what are the specific features of that. With that, I'll close it out by giving a call to action. SUSE Enterprise. Let me talk about SUSE. Let me remind you that SUSE Enterprise Storage is an ideal software-defined storage platform that can fit multiple use cases. Not only can it fit traditional use cases or some of the new emerging use cases, it can be that bridge that helps you transform your traditional data center into a new data center. If you want to deploy it with one single use case in a traditional environment, you can consider any one of those use cases like backup or file sync and share. And then as more and more applications get containerized, you can start adding those containerized applications with the very same cluster which can support those multiple use cases. Discuss that with your sales teams. Speak to your sales teams, understand what are the different capabilities that we offer. We have services that can help you get started. We have workshops which can help you identify the right use cases, and then identify the right use cases, and then have our sales teams walk you through a POC that can help you identify the right use cases so that you can have a successful deployment for SUSE Enterprise Storage. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close the session out. I'll ask you to go ahead and please submit your questions so that we can go ahead and answer those. Thank you and have a great rest of your day, and enjoy the rest of the sessions at SUSECON. Thank you.